The Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leisure Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
G'day, it's Gus Walland here from Gotcha for Life and Triple M. I'd love to invite you along to the Mental Fitness Gym. Go to the mentalfitnessgym.org. That is a place where you can pick up some exercises to build your mental fitness, to work on that emotional muscle, those muscles in your head that are so powerful. Please come and join us at the mentalfitnessgym.org for all that stuff to build your emotional muscle and your mental fitness.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. It is the tipping podcast with my little sidekick, Ella. Ella, how are you going today?
Good. I was very excited to do this podcast today.
Well, I know why you're excited because it is the last round of the regular round.
Before the grand finals?
Before the final series, which will kick off next week. So
cool.
The last time we will tip 8 games.
Okay, and next time we'll tip 2 games?
We'll tip 4 games next week, and then 2 each week after that.
Okay.
And then 1, obviously, for the grand final.
Yeah.
But the last time we'll tip 8 games, and last week you got 6 out of 8.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Well done. Would you like to know who you missed out on?
Yeah.
You missed out on Parramatta.
Well, that's actually a shame.
Well, yes, they did win. So you missed out on Parramatta, and they beat the Dragons 44 points to 40, and you missed out on Newcastle, who beat the Titans last week. So 36 to 14. So, but still, 6 out of 8.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It is pretty good. It is pretty good. 75% tipping rate. Well done. So there's some big games this weekend, and look, there's probably, I reckon 2 big games. The 2 massive games.
I see a Panthers game there.
Yes, there is. I think the game on Sunday, 4:05 p.m. between the Knights and the Dolphins, that will determine who gets 8th spot on the ladder. But I think the biggest game of the weekend is this game here, Ella. Friday, 6
West
p.m.
Tigers and Eels?
Yes, it is. It's Spoonbowl.
Okay.
Spoonbowl. Now, that's a sold-out Campbelltown Stadium, but I think that is the biggest game of the round. But anyway, it kicks off on Thursday night. Broncos versus the Storm. Now, the Broncos, their season is done. They are in 12th spot on the ladder after their loss to the Dolphins last weekend and in the Battle of Brisbane. The Storm, of course, are first place, minor premiers. They cannot get taken off that place. Now, for the Broncos, a few outs for them. Katoni Staggs, Payne Haas, Xavier Willison, and a few ins for them. Corey Oates comes back onto the wing. I think his first game since round 22. Selwyn Cobbo goes into the centres, and also Fletcher Baker comes in for Payne Haas. Look, massive changes for the Melbourne Storm. They get their big guns back. Eli Katoa, Harry Grant, Jack Howarth, Jerome Hughes, Josh King, Nelson Asafa-Solomona, Nick Meaney, Sean Bloor, Trent Liero, Tui Kamakamita, Will Warbrick, Xavier Coates. Masses of changes. And, of course, they've still got Cameron Munster there. Ryan Pappenhausen isn't playing this weekend. Obviously, a little bit of an injury last week, but I think he'll be right for the first week of the finals. And so Sua Fa'alongo takes his spot in at fullback. And, of course, he was a star, I think, in this game last year. I think it was Brisbane versus the Storm. Absolute star. Now, a little bit of talk about whether the Melbourne Storm should rest some more players again this week, considering they will have a home final next week. But if they do win that home final next week, they'll have another week off. So they would have only played one game in 3 weeks, I think it is. So Coach Craig Bellamy has gone for the big guns in this side. It is being played up at Suncorp Stadium. I expect a pretty reasonable crowd up there in Brisbane because they do like to support their team, even how bad they are going. I don't think it'll be a sellout like last week against the Dolphins. Ella, who are you going in this one? Keeping in mind that it is a pretty good Melbourne Storm side.
Okay. I was going to do the Broncos, but now I'm going to do the Storm.
Okay, I think I might have convinced you a little bit on that one, but
Yeah, you did.
okay, yeah, but I do think that the Storm will be too strong for the Broncos. Now, the next game, well, this is the biggest game of the weekend, I reckon. Spoonbowl, Campbelltown Sports Stadium, 6 p.m. The West Tigers in 17th, who had the bye last week, take on the Parramatta Eels. Now, for the away side, the Eels, Dan Kerr is out. Unfortunately, the Ofahiki Ogden is onto the interchange bench for him, and also Sean Lane goes back to prop. Also, Sean Russell is back onto the wing after an illness from last week, meaning that Jake Tungo is the 18th man. For the Tigers, well, this is their last hurrah. It is going to be a sellout out at Campbelltown, the third one, I think, this season. So a big crowd there. And it is pretty much their round 25 side. Aiden Caesar will play at halfback. David Clemmer, Api Coruscant, Stefano Utukamanu, Isaiah Papali'i playing against his old club. So look, this one, as I said, it's going to be a massive game. The Tigers had the bye the last week. The Eels, they just scraped home against the Dragons, 44 points to 40 at CommBank Stadium. Ella, big decision here. Who is going to win the game and avoid the wooden spoon by coming last? Who's going to win the game?
West Tigers.
West Tigers.
Because I'm never going to tip the Eels.
Okay, well...
Even though I might be wrong.
Yeah,
because they won last time.
Yes, they did. They won last time. The Eels won last time. Well, I did think you would tip the West Tigers. Look, I'm going to tip the Eels, obviously, in that one, and they can avoid the spoon, which, if the Tigers lose, they will get their third in a row. So I'm pretty confident Parramatta can get the job done in that one. The next game of the Friday night is fierce rivals, the Rabbitohs taking on the Roosters. Now, obviously, the Rabbitohs in 15th spot are not playing finals, and the Roosters, well, they had an injury-riddled game against the Raiders last weekend and lost that game 14 points to 12. But we'll start with the home side. This game being played at a core stadium as well. The home side, South Sydney. Excuse me, sorry. South Sydney, Jack Whiten is out. A bit of a calf strain against the Panthers last weekend. So Dean Hawkins goes into halfback. Cody Walker reverts back to 5'8" for them. Now, the big news for the Roosters is Brandon Smith. Brandon Smith is out with that ACL, and I think it was an MCL as well. He's out for, unfortunately, 9 months, as is Sam Walker, their halfback, who unfortunately did an ACL as well. We wish them all the best in their recoveries, obviously. And Victor Radley as well with that fractured scapula, I think, shoulder. Which there is talk that he may play in a prelim final if the Roosters make it that far. But apparently that will make it very hard for him in the grand final if the Roosters go through. So his season could be done as well. Joseph Swali'i, he returns into the centre position, replacing Michael Jennings. Joey Manu stays at centre. I probably would have thought that he would have gone into 5/8 with Luke Keary going into halfback. But Trent Robinson has gone for Sandon Smith at halfback. He has played about 10 or so games this year. Has done the job before. Spencer Leniu starts at prop. Connor Watson is in starts at hooker. It still is a very strong looking Roosters side despite losing those players. But the Rabbitohs, they've been struggling all year. They just can't wait for the year to season. Damien Cook's last game for the Rabbitohs. He's going to the St George Dragons next year. Tom Burgess as well is leaving the club. So they'll want to get a win in front of their home fans in their last game for the club. Ella, who are you going to tip in this one? The Rabbitohs or the Roosters?
I'm going to go for the Rabbitohs.
The Rabbitohs, you think they might finish on a high?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, okay. Well, you never know. They may, as I said, they might want to play for those guys who are leaving the club and also their fans and members at Accor Stadium. I would have tipped the Roosters despite the injuries that they have. But
Okay.
both fierce rivals. The next game, the first game on Saturday, 3 p.m, is at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium. Call it Cogra Oval for the purists. Now, this game is on at 3 p.m, but 12:45 p.m. is the NRLW game between these two clubs as well. So, if you can get out there early and watch the NRLW. But the NRL, the Dragons, unfortunately have slipped to 10th with that loss to the Parramatta Eels and unfortunately won't make finals this year. Still, Coach Shane Flanagan has done a great job getting them to where they are. He was bitterly disappointed last week after the game when I spoke to him outside CommBank Stadium. That start, that first half, and that start really cruelled it for them. They did come back to score 40 points in the game. However, it was all too late. The biggest number of points scored in a game, 40, and still lost the game. The Raiders, they had a good win against the Roosters at Allianz Stadium. Elliot Whitehead is out, suspended, so he's played his last game for the club, and Jordan Rapana as well is out. He has played his last game for the club. He is off to Hull FC, I think, next year in the Super League. The Dragons, Ravalawa is out. Ryan Couchman is out. So Matthew Fine, he goes back to the wing. Moses Sully comes into the centre. Jack Bird into the centre as well. This game... there's a minute chance that any of these sides can make the finals, but I don't think they will. They've had reasonable seasons. Jamal Fogarty, he's been out for a long time previously in the season. Had he have been there for a few more games, potentially the Raiders would have won a couple of more games. The Dragons, as I said, they had a better season this year. Zach Lomax plays his last game for the Dragons before going to the Parramatta Eels in 2025. This game being played at St George's home ground. St George are favourites in this game. Ella, who are you going to tip in this one?
I'm actually going to go for the Dragons this time.
The Dragons, okay.
Because I don't know if I tipped them last time.
Last week, yeah, you did. They played Parramatta.
Yeah, I did.
Yep. So you go on the Dragons 2 weeks in a row. Yeah, look, I think the Dragons will get the win in this one as well. And finish off the season with a win. Unfortunately, not making finals. This next game is the Bulldogs and the Cowboys at Accor Stadium. And this game is being played at 5:30 p.m. on Saturday the 7th. 5th versus 6th. So, look, a crucial game for both clubs, I guess, because in terms of home finals as well. So, if the Sea Eagles win their game, which is coming up, then they will jump one of these teams and they will miss out on a home final. So a lot to play for these two sides, because going into semi-finals, you definitely want to be going into semi-finals. You definitely want to be playing a home final if you are in that bottom four. We all know if you're in that top four, then you do get two bites at the cherry, whether you're at home or away. But definitely, if you're in that bottom four of the 8, then you want to be playing a home final. So the Bulldogs and the Cowboys, a crucial game for them. The winner will get a home final. Bronson Sherry is out, suspended. Matt Burton is under the HIA protocols, so he is out as well. So Drew Hutchinson comes in for him. Stephen Crichton comes back after his 1 week suspension, so that's great news for the Bulldogs. Jarrell Skelton comes under the wing with Jacob Kiraz, goes into the centre for Sherry. For the Cowboys, a pretty much unchanged lineup. Just a few changes on the extended bench, but for them, the good news during the week, Reuben Cotter re-signing with the Cowboys until the end of 2028, I think it was. So some good news there for you Cowboys fans. I think Tommy Dearden is also down to the end of 2027. Last game in Cowboys colours, or last regular game in Cowboys colours for Valentine Holmes. Obviously, they'll be playing finals. He's off to the Dragons next year. Kyle Felt also announced during the week that last week he is off to St Helens in the Super League after this season has finished as well. I think this one's going to be a belter of a game. This is like semi-final football coming in early. This one's going to be a hard one to pick, I think. I think I know who I'm going to tip in this one, but Ella, who you got in this one?
Okay, I'm actually going to go for the Cowboys.
Okay, the Cowboys. Well, they have been playing some okay footy recently. They got a win 38-30 over the Storm and a win over the Raiders 42 points to 14. It's only a 2-point game the last time these two sides met back in July, 20 points to 18. The Cowboys got the win. The Bulldogs, they had a crucial loss last week against Manly at home. I think the Bulldogs are going to bounce back in this one and get the win despite those two players being out. I think the return of Steve Crichton is a real crucial one, so I think the Bulldogs will get that one. Saturday night, 7:35 p.m, the Panthers take on the Titans.
I already know who I'm going to tip in this one.
Well, I think I'm going to agree with you on this one because the Panthers are red-hot favourites going into this one. Now, this game is the last ever game at Penrith Park as we know it.
Okay.
Well, could be the second last game, to be honest, because they may end up with a home final. So this is the last regular home game for them. It could be I think it will be their second last game before they knock down and redevelop Penrith Stadium. But I think they're wearing a special heritage jersey in this one. The Panthers going back to their chocolate soldier days. So that will be pretty exciting to see. Still no Nathan Cleary, obviously. Maybe he will return the first week of the finals. Brad Schneider in 5'8", Jerome Luai in at halfback. But a pretty good-looking side, this one, for the Panthers. They are warming themselves up for another finals campaign and a crack at a fourth premiership in a row. For the Titans, well, they can't make finals, but David Fafita is out. Look, they'll be playing for pride. They want to finish the season on a high and get the win in this one, but I think it's just going to be very hard for the Titans. They were playing some good footy a few weeks ago, but they have had 4 losses in a row now, which really cruelled their season. I just think the confidence is down at the moment for the Titans. The Panthers, they had a couple of losses against the Storm and Raiders, but they bounced back last week against the Rabbitohs at home, 34 points to 12. Ella, I think you will tip the Panthers. Am I correct in that one?
Yes, you are correct. Of course I would tip the Panthers.
Yes, okay. Well, I'm going to tip the Panthers in that one as well. Sunday sees the Battle of the Beaches. The Sea Eagles taking on the Sharks, 7th versus 4th. At Four Pines Park in Sydney, and no doubt this could be also another sellout crowd at Brookvale Oval. The big news for Manly fans, Tom Trbojevic is out, looking like he will be back for first week of finals, and Jason Saab is out as well. So Tolu Kula goes into the fullback position, and Clayton Farlolo goes onto the wing for Jason Saab. They are the only changes, I think. Still, Jake Trbojevic is there. Hamoli Olakawatu as well, who pulled off one of the biggest hits you'll see last weekend against the Bulldogs. Geez, it was a big hit. Nathan Brown, number 17. He'll be running off the back fence for the Sharks. Nico Hines is back in that starting halfback position. Daniel Atkinson goes to the bench. Royce Hunt on the bench as well, has just signed a contract with the West Tigers for 2025. I think it's 3-year deal. So he will be off to them next year. He's got his future sorted. Braden Trindle goes back to the 5'8" spot. A really good looking side. Jesse Ramian's back in as well. So, look, this is another semi-final matchup come early, but I think this one's being played at Manly's home ground in the Battle of the Beaches. Recently, they're both sort of about the same sort of form line. This is the first time they've played this season. The Warriors beat the Sharks last week in Sean Johnson's last ever game, 30 points to 28. Previous to that, 4 straight wins. Manly, they got over the Bulldogs 34-22, lost to the Tigers, a crucial loss to them, which nearly dented their top 8 chances, but they got the win against the Bulldogs. This one being played at Manly's home ground in the Battle of the Beaches. Ella, who are you going for?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think I might go the Sea Eagles.
Yes, wise choice. I will go the Sea Eagles as well. As I said, this will be a semi-final come early. The last game of the weekend, this will decide 8th spot on the ladder. Will it be the Dolphins? Will it be the Knights? Both on 28 points. The Dolphins +7, the Knights -48, but that doesn't matter for and against here. It's just the winner of the game will make finals. Can the Dolphins make the finals for the first time in their history? It's going to be tough to see here, but Kalen Ponga obviously in at fullback, Bradman Best, his second run back, Phoenix Crossland, the halfback, Tyson Gamble on the bench. For the Dolphins, Trey Fuller, he keeps his spot at fullback. Maybe a coaching masterstroke from Wayne Bennett. Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow, he goes back, stays in the centre. It's a pretty strong centre combination. Look, that battle of the centres is really going to be a good one. The Hammer and Herbie Farnworth, who had a cracker of a game last week against his old club, the Broncos, up against Dane Gagai and Bradman Best. So those two centre battles are going to be one to watch for sure. Sean O'Sullivan at halfback. Could be Jesse Bromwich's last ever game. That'll be Jeremy Marshall-King is back on the interchange bench, so good. I think it's his second run back from injury, so that is good news for the Dolphins. Look, generally, in the past, Old Boys Day up at Newcastle has been one that Newcastle don't tend to lose a lot of the time. There'll be a lot of old boys there up in Newcastle, 8th versus 9th, battle for the finals. Ella, who are you going to go for, Newcastle or Knights? Who's going to make the final series, the Newcastle Knights or the Dolphins? Will they make the final series for the first ever time?
I think the Dolphins.
The Dolphins. Wow.
Yeah.
Look, you know what? I'm going to go the Dolphins as well, you know.
Okay. So how many this time did we get, like, same and different?
Well, we got the Tigers Parramatta different. Okay, so let's just run through the tips for the round. Now, Ella's tips are the Melbourne Storm to beat the Broncos, the Tigers to beat Parramatta, the Rabbitohs to beat the Roosters, the Dragons to beat Canberra, the Cowboys to beat the Bulldogs, the Panthers to beat the Titans, the Sea Eagles to beat the Sharks, and the Dolphins to beat Newcastle. And my tips for this round, agree with you on the Melbourne one. Obviously, I'm going to go for Parramatta in that one.
Of course
so
you
there's
would.
one different. I'm going to go for the Roosters in the next game. So that's another one different. I'm going to go the Bulldogs to beat the Cowboys. So that's another one different. I think just 3 different. All the rest are the same. As I said, I agree with you on that one. I think the Dolphins, they just played a really good game last week against the Broncos. They'll have confidence. They know what they have to do to get into the finals. They just need to win. So I think they can carry on that confidence from last week and get in. So we've got 3 differents this week.
Okay, and the rest are the same?
And the rest are the same. So that was round 27. And look, as I said,
and we're getting closer to the finals.
That's right. So next week is finals, and the bye is the New Zealand Warriors, who played their last game with a win. Sean Johnson's last ever game with a win last week against the Sharks. Now, just quickly, we'll run through the NRLW, so we can just quickly tip these ones. Saturday 11 a.m. sees the Cowboys take on the Tigers. I'm going to tip the Cowboys in that one. The Saturday, the second game on Saturday, 12:45 p.m. As I mentioned before, was the Dragons and Raiders. I will tip the Raiders in that one. Sunday, the first game, the Sharks versus Roosters. That's probably the pick of there's probably 2 massive clashes there's probably 3 actually that are coming up on Sunday. Super Sunday, I think I'm going to call it. The Sharks and the Roosters. I'll go tip the Roosters in that one. The Eels and Titans, I'll tip the Eels in that one, although the Titans, they will be hard to beat. And I'll tip the Knights at home to beat the Broncos in the NRLW. Ella, thank you very much again for joining me this week. Now,
you're welcome. It was very fun.
No worries. I'm sure the listeners are enjoying having you on week after week.
Well, that's good.
I'm getting some positive feedback.
Okay.
And next week, we will tip the
finals.
First round of the finals. How exciting. So
Yeah, that's exciting.
It is. I can't believe it's finals time already. Well, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. And look, hopefully we may have tipped your team, but enjoy your weekend of football. And thank you very much for listening. There'll be much more coming up on the podcast throughout the week, so stay tuned for that one. Give the podcast a follow on Instagram, Facebook, wherever, and also Apple and Spotify as well. But that's it from us for this week. Go Para!
Hello, Paracave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Paracave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave